Good morning, everyone. So we are about to start. I would like to invite those that are at the back of the room to come and sit down at the front. We will start in a minute. Thank you. Thank you so much, everyone. So we have delegates that are coming from one room to this one, so we will give a minute, and we will start in a minute. I would like to invite those that are at the back to come closer to the podium. Thank you so much. It's good to see so many known faces. So we will start and gradually wait for some of the panelists and speakers coming to the room. They are currently participating in the Article 6.2 sessions, but they will be gradually coming to the room. My name is Carlos Ruiz Garvia. I work for the UNFCCC at the Mitigation Division. And it's a pleasure for me to kick off this side event on capacity building towards Article 6. This covers 6.2 and 6.2 and 6.4 of the Paris Agreement. And this side event has for objective to discuss experiences and activities related to the implementation of the capacity building work program that has been launched at COP27. And this supports parties wishing to pursue voluntary cooperation, including participation in the mechanism. But as I mentioned before, despite that the primary focus is on 6.4, this also covers activities related to 6.2 because they are synergetic, and at this phase of the implementation of the capacity building, they are synchronized in the capacity building program. We will create a space for panelists to present their views, their expectations, but also they will be sharing the progress towards implementation of their activities. So in today's side event, we will hear from our director, James Gravert, at the opening, also why these are some strategic aspects of the implementation of the activities of the Mitigation Division. We will have a presentation that will provide a detailed progress report of the implementation of the capacity building activities. And then we will move to a panel discussions. We have the privilege to have as confirmed panelists Mr. Alan Ramirez. He is a representative and delegate from Dominican Republic, but he's also acting as the global co-chair of the Global DNA Forum for the CDM. We also have a delegate from Colombia. She's the coordinator of the mitigation activities, and she's also the lead negotiator of Article 6 under the ILAC group. We have the privilege to have Mr. Tiberinabu Muwawi. He's a delegate from Zimbabwe, but also is a member of the supervisory body of the mechanism. And last but not least, we will have Mr. Kazu Koatkutsu. He's the director of the Mitigation and Market Direction at the Climate Change Policy Division from the Ministry of Environment in Japan. And then we will offer space for a Q&A at the end of the presentation. At the end of the sessions, we will have around 10 minutes, and this will be followed by a closing remarks by our colleague Perumal, who will be coming and join the session soon. So with this presentation introduction of the agenda of today, I would like to invite Mr. James Gravert. He's the director of the Mitigation Division. Mr. Gravert, you have the floor.
Thank you, Carlos. Participants, good friends, great to be here. I'm honored to stand before you, or sit before you here at this side event on capacity building towards implementing Article 6 of the Paris Agreement, and express my gratitude to each one of you for being here, and to the panelists who will speak in shortly and walk us through what's been presented by Carlos. So the actions we're taking on Article 6 obviously are paramount importance in terms of embarking on the full implementation of the Paris Agreement, the phase we've entered into recently. The carbon markets, as you all know, can play a vital role in our pursuit of 1.5 degree goal if we get it right. To effectively limit global temperature to 1.5, we must reduce emissions by nearly half of our current rate in the next 7 years. And this is a large effort that's going to be necessary, and we are certainly hoping Article 6 will play its role in getting us there. The adoption of the Glasgow Climate Pact marked a pivotal moment for the parties in transitioning from negotiations to implementations. The agreement on the fundamental rules have been set for Article 6, and they serve as the bedrock for establishing the credible and global carbon market, as well as with respect to non-market approaches. This outcome is crucial for making the Paris Agreement fully operational, and as I just said, critical for reaching our near-term goals by 2030. Article 6 under the Paris Agreement serves as a valuable resource for governments, civil society, and all stakeholders involved in advancing climate action. To expedite the implementation of Article 6, it is vital that we establish a common understanding among all stakeholders regarding the decisions that have been made at COP26 and COP27. This shared understanding will create an enabling environment for the development of emission reduction activities and support parties in implementing their nationally determined contributions through voluntary cooperative approaches. Aligned with the decisions made in Glasgow, the Secretariat, in consultations with parties and the supervisory body for Article 6.4, has undertaken the task of designing and implementing a comprehensive capacity building program aiming to facilitate the understanding and effective implementation of Article 6. The work program on capacity building for Article 6 was launched at COP27 in 2022 and has made significant progress so far. Last week, the supervisory body at its 5th meeting considered the information note progress report on the implementation of the work program on capacity building for Article 6.4 and expressed appreciation for the efforts undertaken so far in delivering the program. Today's event provides an invaluable opportunity to update participants on the strides we have made in capacity building activities under Article 6 over the last 6 months. We will delve into the main achievements, challenges, and ongoing activities related to capacity building for operationalizing the guidance on cooperative approaches under Article 6 of the Paris Agreement. I'm pleased to share that we have enhanced our regional capacity to implement the Article 6 capacity building program expediently and effectively. Our Secretariat staff, including those from the regional collaboration centers, have been actively engaged in meetings and missions aimed at providing technical assistance for Article 6 related activities. We have fostered collaboration with esteemed partners, such as the government of Japan, with whom we signed a letter of intent at COP27 to implement capacity building activities addressing climate change. Today, we also eagerly anticipate hearing from our esteemed panelists about any challenges or obstacles encountered in implementing the capacity building activities under Article 6. Furthermore, we look forward to exploring potential synergies with other ongoing capacity building initiatives. Your insights and suggestions for the way forward will be invaluable as we navigate through this critical phase. Your presence today holds immense value in increasing awareness of the progress, discussions, and commitments concerning the Article 6 implementation on the road to COP28 in Dubai later this year. The Secretariat remains steadfast in its commitment to accelerate action and enhancing capacities. Our focus remains on designing and consultations with parties implementing robust capacity building program. This program, implemented by the Secretariat through its regional collaboration centers, will continue assisting parties, especially those from developing countries, in effectively participating in cooperative approaches. Let us seize this opportunity to strengthen our collective resolve and commitment to address the challenges posed by climate change. Together, we can build the necessary capacities, forge the partnerships, and unlock the potential of Article 6 to create a sustainable future for all. Thank you. Back to you, Carlos. Or
Thank
over to
you,
Mary,
thank
perhaps.
you. Thank you very much, James, for these clear and bold words, how the mitigation is supporting the implementation of these programs and why this is so important as a package of the Article 6 as a whole, but also as part of the Paris Agreement implementation. So I just received the notification that our colleague Perumal is on his way to this room, but I'd like to, on his behalf, have the privilege to go ahead with the presentation of some of the status updates of the implementation of the program. So I'd like to give you a little bit of background. You may recall at COP26 in Glasgow in 2021, the CMA requested the Secretariat, including through its regional collaboration centers, in consultation with the supervisory and in consultation with parties, to design and implement a capacity building program to assist parties wishing to voluntarily participate in the mechanism. At the same COP, the CMP authorized the transfer of fundings from their budget to undertake capacity building activities, particularly focusing on developing countries, to apply the mechanism and support the transition from the CDM. In Egypt last year at COP27, you may recall also that the Secretariat launched the work program that was consulted with the supervisory body, but also with parties, and this contains all the elements and activities that will cover the capacity building work program. This year, in March, the supervisory body has adopted additional measures that are relating to the transition of the CDM to the mechanism, including some elements contained on capacity building activities, so they were incorporated as part of the COP27 capacity building work program. And recently, just a week ago, the supervisory body considered an information note that provided a report on the progress of the capacity building activities and expressed appreciations from the efforts undertaken so far in delivering the program, and provided feedback that I will elaborate within the next slides. The supervisory body last Friday provided feedback, and they included elements contained, for example, to emphasize country-level capacity building activities. Also, they elaborated on the focus areas. This is very dynamic. The priority needs for the capacity building activities are evolving as the demands evolve, and they included the simplification of the explanation of decisions, fulfill the participation requirements, support baseline development that is relating to the transition from CDM activities, and improve other elements regarding reporting. This is very much the priority needs focus on 6.2, but there are parallel priority needs identified for the Article 6.2. The supervisory body also highlights the interaction with DNAs, and it's important, and agreed in looking to this establishment of the DNA activities at a future meeting. They recognize the strategic partnerships and synergies. This is key and key principle of the capacity building activities. There were also elements contained that will enable the expansion of the services and the activities of the regional collaboration centers. And finally, also some detailed recommendations to make the future activities report more target, but also more aligned with the expectations of the supervisory body. So this covers the feedback recently received. It's a work in progress. The capacity building program is very extensive. It covers several areas. I won't elaborate on those, but you probably may have seen a note that has been published through the UNFCCC website. Is publicly available, that provides all the elements of the capacity building program, but also the status update. You will see that there were major undertakings in terms of expanding resources at the Regional Collaboration Center to support countries, particularly in the regions covered by those centers. Some platforms and infrastructures has been put in place to enable technical assistance, to promote collaboration. We have a rich database on synergies from different organizations that are also supporting this program. I won't go into the details, but I'd like to invite you to look at this note that is available on our website. Maybe some key elements of the program. We are following principles as mandated by the parties. They are, for example, principles connected to the need to have a country-driven approach, looking into the circumstances, capacities and conditions of countries, and tailor the solutions to enable their adoption of the mechanism if they wish to do so. It's need-based, so we will continue evaluating the needs, priority needs on capacity building. We are looking into a KPI, a set of KPIs that are impactful, so where we need measure the effectiveness of the capacity building activities, ensuring that they are synergetic with the efforts undertaken by countries, but also by the supporting organizations in the adoption of the Article 6. The note contains the scheduling of different activities. It's a large list. Only in the few weeks we have conducted more than 10 webinars that goes into the details of these elements, but I would like to give you some priority activities that you may expect for the next couple of months until COP28, and they include, for example, active engagement with countries and participation at the climate weeks. We will have 4 climate weeks, and there will be workshop of 3 days each that will be covering elements on carbon pricing, Article 6.2 and Article 6.4. In addition to this, we will be undertaking 2 additional hybrid programs to mirror the work that will be conducted at the climate weeks. And at COP28, you will also have a similar space that we have at the SB's 58, with the aim to provide you with a status update on these activities. So I would like to thank you for your attention. For the also welcome my colleague Perumal, the manager on Article 6 at the Mitigation Division. And with this, I would like to pass the floor to my moderator, Mary Awad is with us. She's a representative senior officer from the Regional Collaboration Center for the MENA region based in Dubai. Mary, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Carlos. I would like to invite our distinguished panelists with us today to join us on the panel so we can start the discussion. You can move one. Thank you so much for joining us here today, both to the participants and to the panelists. So this panel will discuss experiences on the implementation of the capacity building activities on Article 6, and we have a rich experience with us here today. I would like first turn to Mr. Alan Ramirez, Technical Director of the National Council for Climate Change and CDM of the Dominican Republic, and CDM Global DNA Forum co-chair. Thank you for joining us. We'd like to first ask you for your views on what are the priority needs for capacity building on Article 6, but also if you can let us know during the implementation of Article 6 activities, what are the challenges and opportunities that arise? And finally, also, what would you be recommending to enhance the capacity building program under Article 6? Over to you, Alan.
Thank you very much. It is a pleasure for us, particularly for myself, to be part of this panel. I'm not by any means an expert in MDL, now MDS, or 6.4 issues, but I'm willing to assist as much as possible in the process of creating capacities within the region, and particularly in the Dominican Republic, to come up with a good execution plan and with a good to take advantage of the opportunities that comes through this capacity building program. I have to report that in the case of the Dominican Republic, there's a lot of excitement, a lot of expectations with the new mechanism. We have received many requests for companies and initiatives that are willing to be part of the mechanism. And I have to say that the Dominican this is not necessarily new. The Dominican Republic was leader within the MDL mechanism in the region. I think there were, correct me, Luz, but I think that we had over 13 or 14 projects approved and implemented from the Dominican Republic. So we are eager to complete this process of learning the new rules, the new specifications as regards to the implementation of the 6.4 article. And from our office in the Dominican Republic, which holds the responsibility to be the DNA, and my own responsibilities within the DNA Forum, to try to convey as much support as possible from the UNFCCC to make this a reality. I will stop here for now. Well, as regards to capacity building needs, of course, we will need to get used to this and learn about these specifications that are still to be completed. We hope that within the COP 28 in Dubai, we will, at the end of the COP, have a clearer picture on the status and specific rules and regulations for the implementation of the mechanism. And once we have that, the need for training and capacity building through the RCCs and the offices, the local offices will need to be enhanced. So again, thank you very much for the invitation, and I look forward for the possibility of interacting more actively within this initiative and be an important part of the program, capacity building program that is to start. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Alan, especially for highlighting that CDM infrastructure nationally can also help transition to Article 6. Thank you so much. I know you've just arrived, but Kazu, I would like now to turn to you. It would be great to hear from you again on what are the priority needs for capacity building on Article 6, and when implementing Article 6, the capacity building activities, what challenges, obstacles, and opportunities arise, and finally, what would be your recommendations to the capacity building work program? Over to you, Kazu.
Thank you very much. My name is Kazuhisa Kawakutsu. Call me Kazu, just in short. I'm from Ministry of Environment, Japan. And thank you very much for the Secretariat to inviting us, myself, and also be very pleasure to participating to this event. Again, from our delegation, we consider capacity building the really necessary element of implementation of Article 6. So we see this as a really necessary and also needs to really move ourselves really forward in a very timely and also accelerate our pace. In this context, I may just wanted to share that we, Ministry of Environment, also launched an initiative called the Paris Agreement Article 6 Implementation Partnership, which is trying to enable the participation by parties, as well as UN institutions, and non-party organizations, including research institutions, universities, and NGOs, and private sectors, to work together to implement Article 6. And we have now 8 countries and 32 international organizations, and we are also having many interests from private sectors. And having said that, we think that the implementation of the capacity building by the UNFCCC Secretariat, maybe there was a presentation, I think. Sorry, I missed because of the negotiation process also going on. But I think, again, it is very fundamental for this, to enable this. So I just wanted to emphasize the Secretariat role, which are already mandated by the decision on the 6.2 and 6.4, and particularly the institutional arrangements and reporting, and also the development of baselines in the 6.4 mechanism. But I just wanted to touch upon some of the areas which, from our point of view, it will be very important to look at. There are 3 areas that we think, especially for the parties to participate in Article 6. One is authorization, including institutional arrangements in the country. And the second is reporting. As you know, that there are 3 layers of reporting, starting from initial report, annual information, which is now we are discussing under agreed elective format to be finalized this year, and also tracking, including the development of registries in each country. So those 3 elements, again, authorization, reporting, tracking, are the necessary component of when the parties are participating, wanted to participate, they need to have all these 3 elements. So from our point of view, those 3 areas is really priority in order to establish within the country to develop those. So for this, I think definitely it is important that authorization process, maybe we need to elaborate this. Maybe, another point I also wanted to make is those authorization and then will be different by parties and parties. How to develop their own institutional arrangements is different in each country. So we need to reflect, and also we need to discuss how those authorization process. Again, Article 6 is also the part of the NDC achievement, and also the enhancement of NDC, which is also the part of the national strategy to really increase their ambition and how the Article 6 will be used by the host party. And so, again, that is really important to really discuss what is the context in the NDC, and then how that could be also related to their using the Article 6. So I just wanted to point out, I think those national priority needs to be incorporated. At the same time, we are talking about registries or infrastructure. Again, now under the Paris Agreement, in the 6.2, there are several ways of cooperation, bilateral or regional basis, and also 6.4 mechanisms. So I think we need to understand what kind of a tracking system could be more appropriate in the context of countries. It could be development of their own registry, it could be make sense, or it could be use of international registry, or also it could be related to other part of the tracking system. Again, this is also the emphasis of the different circumstances in each country. What kind of a tracking system would be more appropriate is depending on the circumstances of the country. So that's also a very important point. So we are developing the capacity building material for the support of the country. So this initiative we are having some working group to create capacity material by taking all the updated information and working together with all the UN institutions, including UNFCCC, World Bank, and UNDP, and of course other important actors, to create common tools, materials to be used for the countries, but the different circumstances. So I think it is important to work all the stakeholders together to develop some kind of a package support for the country and bringing all the resources and then try to accelerate our preparation for those three areas. Again, authorization, reporting, and tracking. I think those are necessary components. And for this, I also wanted to emphasize that we all work together to really implement, to accelerate the pace. I think that is what I wanted to say. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Kwakutsu, for these insights, detailed recommendations, and also priorities. Thank you so much for that. I would like now to turn to Ms. Adriana, Mitigation Coordinator at the Ministry of Environment of Colombia and lead Article 6 negotiator for ILEC. The same question goes to you, Adriana. So what would be, in your view, the priority needs for capacity building under Article 6? What are the challenges, priorities, and obstacles when faced when implementing the capacity building for Article 6? And also, what would be your recommendations? Over to you.
Thank you. Well, as many of you might know, Colombia has quite the experience on carbon markets. We have a national carbon market, and we have participated in the CDM schemes. Oh my God, I'm seeing like my hair is all around. It seems like I have been stressed today. Then, having this into account, we kind of took the decisions that we have already had in Glasgow as well in Sharm el-Sheikh and trying to internalize those decisions into the national framework. And as Kazu had already stated, we had to see authorization, reporting, and tracking. So that means to prepare as a country to have all the national arrangements in place for all of these. But from the Colombian experience, we also had to go back a little bit back, and we had to see the whole picture. We needed to see mitigation as a whole, not just carbon markets, and therefore we had to see what the role of the markets are and what the options were. We are right now working on different things, but mainly the first thing that we thought that we had to prepare on were national arrangements. And those national arrangements have different things that we have to prepare in order to participate into the scheme. And I guess I can bring here at this point that we are right now receiving capacity building as well from the German government through the Spark project. And we see that the first thing that we as countries have to do is to have the national regulation in place, to have all the rules clear. We have to work on accounting basis. We have to work on validation and verification process, how the DOE is, and I guess all of in this room knows what a DOE is, but we have to see what the clear rules for these actors are. Another point that we also saw is the MRV system, so the tracking part and the reporting part. Every project has to have these, so we are working on the requirements not only for the project at the development of methodologies, but as well as how the MRB system has to work in place. Colombia has right now registry. It's called RENARE. But RENARE is not prepared for Article 6 because RENARE was not envisioned for markets, was envisioned for mitigation. So we are now envisioning how the National Registry has to prepare for carbon markets in general and also for Article 6, and therefore what part exactly of the process has to go into RENARE and which part of the process is going to go into international registry. That I guess this is the kind of the conversation that we as well as having in the rooms. But at least for us, it is also important that at the national level and through our registry, we have to evaluate all the projects and all the programs. Because we are the ones, as I guess I will kind of steal the words that one of the countries spoke a few minutes ago in the room, and it is not only that we have the rights to participate, but we have the responsibility to participate. So, as parties responsible, we have to prepare how we are going to also evaluate these projects, how we are going to envision that the projects are going to be additional, real, and verifiable. And also which kind of requirements we have to put into motion for things that were not in the mind of many of us during the Kyoto Protocol stage, which are safeguards and limits. In Colombia, social environmental safeguards are key in order to develop markets. We have lots of communities, and I guess most of our developing and developed countries have some kind of community, local community, indigenous people, Afro-descendant, and so on. So we have to prepare in order to protect also the rights of our citizens. And that's why we see that it is quite complex to participate in Article 6 as host country, and that's why the capacity building has to start from the national framework for the evaluation of the projects, for the authorization process, as well as for the reporting process. And I guess I already... that's kind of like quite a big list, right? So yeah, with that I will end.
Thank you very much, Adriana. I would now like to move to Mr. Muwati, climate change scientist and project coordinator at the Climate Change Management Department in Zimbabwe and member of the Paris Agreement Article 6.4 supervisory body. So we would like to hear your views, similarly to the other panelists. What, in your view, would be the priority needs for capacity building, the challenges and opportunities encountered when implementing this capacity building, and finally, what would be your recommendations? Over to you.
Thank you. Thank you for giving me the floor. My name is Tirwan Muwati. I work for the Ministry of Environment, Zimbabwe. I always like to speak after Kazu in the supervisory body because he sort of exhausts everything, and then we have to add one or two things on top of that. But like what my esteemed colleagues have already indicated, there's a lot that is required from the host parties. If you look at the Paris Agreement and the decisions from Glasgow. So some of the highlights, they've already touched on it. We need capacity building in terms of baseline settings, authorizations, the legal frameworks and institutional regulatory frameworks around that. They will need to be much more elaborated, much more than what we had under CDM. And then there are issues related to the registries being set up, and also related to the registries, the issues around corresponding adjustment, and also related to the issues around corresponding adjustment, the issues related to the NDCs. How are we going to be looking at our NDCs in relation to the to Article 6? What is going to be the impact of the projects and programs we are going to be undertaking under Article 6 on on our NDC. Countries need to do the calculations and see what they are supposed to sell, where they are not supposed to sell, and make decisions in terms of authorizations. And all that work is highly technical and would require the necessary capacitation and expertise to happen. Also alignment with long-term goals of the country, alignment with our low emission development strategies, and alignment with the broader Paris Agreement vision. There are also issues related to CDM transition. I didn't hear any of my colleagues mention that. There's need for that capacity as well. But you also find out that the supervisory body is also working on that, on the templates, and trying to simplify the process for that transition. And hopefully, within the next few months, from the supervisory body side, we have these templates to enable processes to start happening by the time we get to December, when CDM projects are supposed to start the transition process. Then there are also issues related to the crediting periods. You look at the Article 6, and then what the contribution that your credits can do to the NDC, and they are not supposed to overlap into the other NDC period, and so forth and so forth. So the capacity building program will need to go into detail. To enable this to happen, we need to concentrate the capacity building on certain key people within host countries. And we have been having a challenge from the supervisory body side of things, in that countries have not yet nominated their DNAs. For example, we need the DNAs to be available, so that this highly specialized kind of work can commence, because it's the highly technical nature of the work. If you have one person attending a workshop today, then you have another person attending the next workshop, it might not be effective enough in terms of building capacity within the host countries. And I think only about 30 or so countries have so far submitted from September last year, have submitted their NDAs. So we need that part of things to happen. I understand the Secretariat is going to send out a reminder so that we have the DNAs in place. Then in terms of the challenges, I think some of them are not new. The technical capacity to enable the building of capacity in different countries. Of course, we have the regional collaboration centers. They've only recruited, I think, one person each. And obviously, that will not be enough. Look at Africa with only 2 regional centers. Then we have 2 colleagues who are specializing in this work. But again, we recognize the efforts that are happening in terms of pulling together other countries that have the capacity to do so. We have the Japanese implementation agreement partnership. We have UNDP is also coming in, I think, with the Swiss. And then we have other colleagues that are also coming in to assist with the capacity building, other organizations that are coming to assist with the capacity building program. Then last but not least, there's the issue of the financial resources required. Of course, everyone is talking about the $10 million for capacity building for Article 6.4. But again, we are looking at the whole world. So $10 million in terms of the whole world, it's I don't want to say nothing. It's not enough. So it would seem as if I'm throwing a stone at the CDM for providing us these resources. But it's there to start things. We still need to get more resources into the basket. And the situation is a bit urgent. Because if you are to get the market up and running, let's say in 2024, there's just not enough time to understand. I can tell you from experience, I've gone to my minister's office, I think 3 or 4 times, trying to explain to him what is a corresponding adjustment. So it takes a bit of, it will take a bit of time. There's a lot of new things that are coming with the new market. So we need to be up and running as soon as possible. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Sirvanu, for sharing this experience. There's a lot of common elements in all 4 interventions, which speak to the same thing. I'd like to turn again to each one of you to ask, what do you see are the success factors for the Article 6 capacity building work program, especially in the next 6 months towards COP28? Alan, I turn to you first.
I think that the program will complement initiatives that are already in place. For example, SIACA, which is, as you know, the collaborative instruments for ambitious climate action, has developed a strategy, has supported the Dominican Republic government to develop a strategy for the creation of carbon markets, and they're now in the third of these packages of support. We're looking into different options available for the starting of the implementation of Article 6, provided that probably we can start with one mechanism or one of the different options of carbon market before, develop that, and then move probably to another. But we, as I mentioned before, we are having a lot of expectation, a lot of we have received a lot of inputs from the private sector and the organizations in the Dominican Republic, where we have a active system of enterprises that are moving into carbon markets as an option for their operations nationally, and some of them even regionally. So I think, again, that within the next 6 months, and particularly after December, we will be in a position to further complete these capacity building efforts and be more prepared again to take full advantage of the new mechanism and the transition from CDM to the new mechanism of CDS. So again, this is what I can come up with as we speak. We are confident that if the $10 million will not be enough, at least it will they will help us facilitate the startup kickoff of the new mechanism in a more effective way. I hope that with the assistance of RCCs and UNFCCC, we will conduct many activities like this. Again, we will still support the participation of and the organizations of regional meetings as the regional climate weeks. We will be attending the next Caribbean Regional Climate Week, where I think that we could move forward a little bit more with more specific hands-on training for the new mechanism of Article 6. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Alan, for these thoughts. Kazu, I would like to turn to you for your views.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much. So I also try to focus on those 3 elements which I just mentioned, and then what kind of capacity building work maybe we, at this point of time, we need to focus on. The authorization, I may probably mention that at this point, the sharing of the country's experience will be a really, really effective way of doing this, because this is still new, but also we could see more specific learning from by real authorization processes and authorization. So I wanted to say that I think sharing of countries' authorization processes, including their arrangement, institutional arrangement, this is definitely, I think, our focus at this point. And of course, as again, those authorization may be different by each country by country, but we can still learn what kind of information they are providing, what kind of arrangement they are doing. I think we can definitely learn, and they're always learning from these processes. So I think sharing of experiences is really, really important for this authorization. And the second point, reporting. The reporting, we have already agreed in Glasgow and Sharm el-Sheikh. So we have an initial report outline already, and also the agreed elect format. Again, this is still discussing, but to be agreed, and also regular information outline already there. So I think we have already framework. Again, in this context, the preparation of the initial report on the ground, and also looking at some example, what others are doing, is really important. You will be develop your capacity if you have real examples of what you are engaging on, some mechanisms or some 6.4, which is, again, as Trinidad mentioned, we are developing our process. So working on the real example together with some mechanism really helps. For that, we have already have framework to report. And the third point, tracking. I think at this point, we have several ways of doing tracking. One is national registry to be developed by your own, by having some software, or UNFCCC will be also providing international registry if you don't have access to it. And the World Bank is also providing their support for the registry. UNDP is also supporting their support registry. And also independent standard and the voluntary market also providing their tracking system. So I think we need to see what are the options are, and then what could be the real kind of appropriate way of utilizing this, again, reflecting your own kind of circumstances. So I think having the options to be on the table and then understanding how it works from your point of view, I think that is really important. So understanding all those options, particularly the tracking element, is important. I just wanted to mention about institutional arrangement. For me, it is evolving. Again, we may start from developing Article 6 strategies, like you need to talk about with among the national government what that means, NDC, and then we develop authorization process. But still, you have a reporting process to be followed, and then you have a tracking system. You may also revise your own authorization processes. So it will evolve. Your institutional arrangement will evolve. So I think it is important that what is your stage at this point, and then look for what is the support for that purposes. So I think that is very important. Yeah. So those are things that are important. But at this point, I think I want to say sharing experience towards COP28 is really, really important. And then we will start real implementation from next year to start really full support. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I would like now to turn to Adriana. Again, in one line, if you could tell us what would be successes in the next 6 months, if possible.
I will take kind of Casu's intervention. And I want to first, before that, I want to first congratulate the Secretariat for the Article 6.2 course. It was pretty useful. I wanted to take it, but I couldn't because I didn't have enough time. But I know that many people in Colombia took it, and they all approached me during another event, and they told me that now they finally understood what I was talking about every time I was making an intervention in an event. So congrats on that. And then coming back into the main issue, I guess we could do some knowledge sharing and something that, at least from the perspective of this Spark project in which Colombia is part, we have some tools. We develop a tool that it doesn't matter what country you are, you can use that tool and do some kind of like checklist of if you are prepared on certain points. And that's something that could be useful to other people. Sure. So I guess we will be able to share that with other colleagues in a workshop setting. So the main topic, as Kazu mentioned, is the national arrangements and the authorization process. And the authorization process is the one that will enable what kind of regulation you have to put in place. So yeah, those are like the main issues.
Thank you so much, Adriana. I would like now to turn to Tirivanu.
Thank you for giving me the floor again. I concur with what the colleagues have said. And I also think we need to simplify processes and provide tools that simplify understanding. Because the market is by no means simple, and trying to implement Article 6 is not simple. So as we head towards COP 2028, I think we should start now thinking of development of the necessary manuals which can complement the capacity building efforts. Manuals which people in different countries can just go through the manual as you try and do things on your own, because we know we are not going to be able to reach each and everyone who needs this capacity building. And then we live in a digital world. We also need to start developing the digital tools and start to pilot them as we go into the future. That will make the capacity building processes much simpler and much easier, and the uptake of these mechanisms, I think, will be much greater if people have better understanding and if it's easier for them to participate in the market using these manuals and using these digital tools. Thank you.
Thank you very much for this, all four of you, invaluable insights. Before opening the floor for questions, I would now like to turn to Perumal to maybe let us know what is the plan for the next 6 months when it comes to the capacity building work program.
No, thank you. Thanks for this esteemed panel. I think to actually pinpoint on what we need to be doing in the next 6 months in order for us to be able to have a successful factor on Article 6 capacity building. I think the first and foremost is in terms of the hands-on support at the country level that has been requested. And I think from Dominican Republic, like they said about, I think one of the things I think when Carlos has initially presented is also like we do have this regional experts in the 6 RCCs, and some are filled and some are yet to be filled. And I want to take this opportunity to thank again the SIACA initiative and the German government for being supportive in terms of having those experts in place on time. So we do right now have in 4 locations trying to help. So the whole purpose of having them there is that, as Trivi said, that having one person covering all regions is not going to be practically possible in larger continents. But at least what we wanted to know is that on a direct level, these experts would be engaging with those different governments on ground in identifying where we could directly support, so that the support can be delivered through the RCC program as well as through the other partnerships that we have. The second, I think, in terms of 2 things, in terms of sharing experience and also the various aspects related to authorization, institutional arrangements, and reporting. So we do have an upcoming, like I think again the last slide from Carlos, which he has initially presented, has identified the work that has been laid out within the information note that is in your public domain, which is a 60-page document, which with a lot of annex talks about the various activities that we wanted to do in collaboration with many, including what Kazu mentioned as an Article 6 implementation partnership, where UNFCCC is as one of the key knowledge partners within that. We are part of various carbon alliances. We could see from eastern and western part of carbon alliances. So it's not that we know surely for us UNFCCC. It's not UNFCCC's success story. It's rather to say that how better that we can facilitate countries to implement Article 6 through leveraging what already exists on the ground rather than replicating and reinventing wheel. That's where we are doing. You might also look at our information note where we have identified various partners in which that we are, based on the current available information. It's not that it's a closed list. We are always open to work with any partners who have larger presence at the local level to address that. And within that list, one of the things that you talked about, sharing of experience. So one of the days within the regional climate weeks in all the 4 regions, we are planning to engage an open dialogue on that in terms of, I won't call it as, we haven't named it as a sharing of experience, but to bring in all relevant actors within those regions and to hear from the region on the region-specific issues in terms of sharing knowledge. Like what is, like one size fits all never works, but we do get inspired from experience from other places. But coming from within a region adds more value, so we wanted to have those regional dialogues. And then the one of the inputs that came from Adriana is about the going backwards to looking at your NDC. So one of the things that we are doing, again, I will invite you within the Regional Climate Week in collaboration with the SIACA. There will be a 3-day workshop that we are planning preceding to the Regional Climate Weeks, wherein we have laid out the 3-day plan of first day covering carbon pricing, second day on Article 6.4, and third day on Article 6.2, getting into specific elements related to reporting, tracking, etc. On the first day within carbon pricing, we are also in conversation with certain modelers to look at some crunchy numbers to identify within the different carbon pricing elements, where does Article 6 features in that as a hands-on experience. So we do have a plan of 3-day workshop in the climate weeks, proceeding to the climate week, looking at specific aspects of where does within the larger NDC implementation Article 6 plays. So we do that as a mock exercise, and then we help through our regional collaboration centers. We do have the lead here from you. Andrea is here, so if many of you might be knowing, he was also part of one RCC before, so you can reach out to him. So we would be using those regional experts once we have this mock-up exercise of this digital tool to go and work with countries. In terms of really looking at, it is not going to give you a silver bullet solution by Article 6, Sector X, activity Y can be done. It's a large exercise, as people said, but we are on that track, and we hope that when we come to Dubai, the proof of the pudding is in the eating. I think by then we would have completed all the climate weeks, and as we planned, the 6 regional events would have been completed by then, so we would be able to present that. And then last on Trivi, in terms of simplification of the tools, I do not know how many of you, I know that last supervisory body meeting, we do have a side event on supervisory body on the Saturday afternoon. The lot of focus was on one category or type of activity, which is removals. But there was also larger conversation within the supervisory body, which basically is looking at process simplification, as Trivi said. There are 2 types of simplifications, right? Like one is once you have the rules, in the implementation of the rules, how we can make digital tools and simplified. The other is that when you set up the system, how do you take the complexity at the level of the regulator so that the user are at ease. So the supervisory body is considering quite a lot of digitization, including the submission of the host party approval can be digitized in the future. We do have a digital platform under the CDM, which we are looking at fit for purpose, how it can be remodified and used for Article 6.4 purposes, whereby it's a beautiful tool that was developed with the resources of the CDM, so not just the 10 million, but they also have put millions on developing certain digital tools. We are trying to revamp and rehabilitate that in order to simplify the process within the Article 6.4 where digitalization could be feasible. And they have considered as a concept note on different aspects related to validation, verification, project cycle procedures, project submissions, DNA approvals, etc. All these things also comes with certain constraints, and I hope that through our RCCs and the presence of other colleagues and the experts there, we would be able to resolve. So hopefully, as I said, that when we again present as an update on the capacity building in Dubai, probably we would have more quantitative and qualitative impact on this capacity building to report back to you. Thanks.
Thanks a lot, Perumal, for this overview of the immediate next steps, which are many. We would now like to open the floor for questions. Yes, I see a lot of hands up. I believe there's going to be a microphone passed. If you could just...
Yes. We can take by order. I think I could see Thomas, Axel, and then lady next to Axel, and then Osmame, and then next to Osmame, and then Malin. So we have 5 here, and then we will, hopefully we'll cover. You can keep your intervention short. We have 10 minutes.
Yes. I will be short. Thomas Ford, Germany. So I would not go to the details. I have a special question, especially the question on the voluntary carbon market, how the countries are thinking about integration of the voluntary carbon market. Kazu mentioned a lot of our registries. I would say this sounds like a multiverse, and I think it is very difficult for countries to get the overview.
Yeah, thank you, Axel Michaelova, Perspectives and University of Zurich. My question would relate that under the CDM, we've seen certain countries being very fashionable targets for capacity building, and whereas other countries have not been able to really get the resources. Now I see you talk about not reinventing the wheel and so on, but how would you address this issue of the imbalance of resources available for capacity building, especially for those countries who are in the second or third tier? And what will the Secretariat do to try to have a balanced distribution of capacity building funding? Thank you.
Okay. Sofia from Colombia, and I wanted to ask Adriana specifically, as you mentioned, there is a need for projects to think how they would affect or benefit communities. Are they the ones already facing the climate crisis? I understand that Article 6 is also about supporting the alternatives for carbon markets, more specifically the 6.8 part of it. So right now, the Bolivian government is focusing on strengthening these unlinked mechanisms. So my questions specifically are, if you could tell us the cooperation of ILAC for these alternatives, how is Colombia strengthening the capacity building process with communities to ensure biodiversity and community protection systems for mitigation and adaptation? And second question, if you could point out a few needs, if you could point out a few needs on support from developed and enriched countries to focus their efforts in these alternatives.
Thank you, Osmame, and then Malin.
Okay. Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Usman Falsar, and the coordinator of the West African Alliance on Carbon Markets and Climate Finance. We've been active on capacity building since 2017, and I would like to share some challenges that are still persistent in many countries. The issue of having the capacity to negotiate the MOPAs, the purchase agreement. So I think there is most of the time we have an asymmetry of information that need to be addressed in host country, mainly in developing countries. This is something that we need to put the focus on when it comes to build capacities. The risk of overselling of credits at a host country level, benefit sharing mechanism, and how to build the capacities for local communities in the host countries. And in terms of best practice, I think we should put the focus on how in-country hands-on capacity building. That's what we need now. And to work and avoid to leave anyone behind. I think experience sharing with countries that are in the same region with different level of advancement, I think it's something that we are now trying to explore. For example, in our sub-region, we are trying to gather Senegal, Gambia, and Guinea, or neighboring countries that are in different stage of advancement, and to try to have some sub-regional capacity building. And I do acknowledge that funding is an issue, and that's the opportunity for me to thank again the German government who have been really supportive for our alliance activities. Thank you.
So, thank you. My name is Marlene Alberg, Federal Minister of Economic Affairs and Climate Action, also Germany, sorry. I have a question to the Climate Secretariat. If we look at the needs of capacity building, I would divide it into two parts. The one is the technical stuff, on authorization, registry, and of course also the tracking issue. But there is also a political dimension, and that is probably the more challenging one. How does Article 6 relates to the NDC? Countries need to understand this in depth. It depends also, of course, of the NDC of each country, how complex this could be. And in this regard, and that is, of course, related to overselling risk, but it is also to have an idea how to strategically to reach the NDC more cost effectively, probably, and also in order to be able then also to enhance the NDC over time. So, and there I would like to know whether you see how you would define the role of the Climate Secretariat in regard specifically to this political dimension of capacity building in this regard. Thank you. I thank you.
Yes, one more. Yeah, okay. Thank you. Didn't want to be grabby. Johnny West from Carbon Tracker. I'd like to ask all of the delegates on the tracking, the question of tracking, have any common data formats emerged so far, or are you swapping data formats between each other? And particularly metadata, so in other words, when you have a number which is a reduction in emissions for land use change or shutting down an oil well, is it recorded whether that number is a measurement or simply a projection, the product of an activity factor by an emissions factor? And lastly, just to check, when you talk in terms of registries, this will all be open data, as in anyone can download it? Thank you.
Thank you so much. I apologize. We have to close the round of questions so we can give a chance to our panelists to respond. I believe the first question was on the voluntary carbon markets. I open it to the panelists.
Yes. First of all, I think from the government point of view, I think it is important to understand what's happening under the voluntary market in relation to their country. So in that respect, I think it's important that both voluntary market information as well as how it related to the Article 6 context needs to be communicated. For that, I think registry could be a very important area to first explore. And that could be also reflected in the report. But for this, I just wanted maybe advertise. Tomorrow there's a side event in the morning from 10 to 15. We're also addressing some of those aspects in terms of infrastructure in relation to the voluntary market. We are also having some panel from government and voluntary market sector to discuss in this topic. Just, yeah, on this point. But I have other comments on other questions, but I can maybe leave it to you. Sorry, just to address another point, important point is how to use the regional aspects and in-country aspects. So maybe I don't want to go in detail, but maybe we need to look at, first we need to increase in-house, in-country capacity. But maybe there is a very complementary role that a regional alliance or regional banks or regional approach could be also addressed, including regional collaboration center. So maybe we need to, look at that kind of aspects, which we will take up in our initiative. But okay, I will finish here.
No, I would just quickly take upon a couple of things.
Sorry, and last thing. Sorry.
This is the only place where I can...
Axel's comment, how to address imbalance. I think this is also a very important point. At least from our approach, we wanted to put everything into the public space so that we know which country are receiving what and what stages. And then we can identify where the imbalances are, and then we can invite all the stakeholders. That's why I'm saying we need to work together to really look in that part. So I think an important point is we need to make it more transparency and then to be open so that we can work together. I think that is a point that I wanted to make. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Kazu. No, I always find that this is the only forum where I can challenge Kazu in a negotiation forum. Otherwise, he's my boss as a party. No, I think it was quite clear. I think I agree with Kazu that together everyone can achieve more. I think there's no second opinion on that, particularly on this. And I think to respond directly to Axel in terms of third-tier countries or in terms of having balanced stuff, what we are actually looking at is that you always know that where there is more, the flies goes to places where there are more sweet. And we wanted to make sure that the UNFCCC actually, the lessons learned from one of the CDMs about the regional distribution. So the individual experts that are doing mapping exercise, we also wanted to go into countries which has never tapped the potential or where there is a future potential. We wanted to keep them within the portfolio so that we can make sure that we can make change. And then there will be kind of a replication effect once we start with doing that. And for sure we are having that. And then in terms of looking at the political dimension, and I think one of the things that we are, some countries are coming forward with, for example, one country has come forward, done its own MAC curve and said that anything above a particular MAC cost is all open for Article 6. It makes our life simpler in terms of going to such kind of countries. So one of the things that we are looking at the political thing is that we heard many concerns about overselling as one of the aspects, as you said, and then how does it implement, how does it actually coalesces with the NDC implementation? That goes to the question of integration between the voluntary carbon markets and what's happening, whether my right hand knows what the left hand is doing, whether I'm really losing something. We have seen some new regulations coming from different places. So as part of the political dimension, we are also trying to do a specific outreach in terms of helping countries to identify them because as part of the capacity building within the 6.4, it is their responsibility under paragraph 26D to identify activities and specific sectors that are eligible under that. As part of that work, we are also sitting and working with them, but not at we will take that as a feedback, and we can also look at around the COP, whether we can have a global dialogue around that to bring major actors. Regional, during the regional climate weeks, we can look at one of the aspects on the political dimension. Thanks for that feedback.
Thank you so much, everyone. This was great. Thank you for your engagement. Thank you,